Hello everybody, I'm Ard, and welcome to another episode of Minecraft Animatica 2 Expert. Today, I figured we would actually continue on from where we ended up last time and actually start into the IndustrialCraft branch of the quest book and actually make some progress for a change, instead of just, I don't know, mucking around with bees all day long. I mean, that was fun, but they did sting me, and that was just not great. So, let's start by going over to the base and go take a look at some things I did in the meantime. So over here, one of the things I did was I actually put up some signs to remind me to do some things in the future. Just like a basic to-do list to actually finish the building. You know, the second floor, the roof, the annex, the storage room in the basement, the barn that I want to build, stuff like that. And also a couple of like really important items to make. So to go through these really fast, because these actually kind of are important long term, are actually relatively easy to make in the scheme of things. We should make them sooner than later. So the first is the time in the bottle. Every single guide on Enigmatica you'll see will tell you to actually make this ASAP. And what it does is it stores time while it's in your inventory, just like a straight linear time as you play. And you can right click that on machines to make them go faster. It's actually really super useful just to speed up the process to make things less tedious. The second is the Ender Book. It uses more Ender Pearls than I currently have to make it, but it lets you use experience to teleport around the world back and forth. You can basically set waypoints, and it makes traveling long distances pretty easy. And the third one is the Dank Null, which is basically like a really large, deep storage type unit you carry around with you, and it can store just an almost unfathomable amount of just materials in really, really large stacks. It's really good for mass grinding while you mine out large chunks of like the nether and whatnot later. So that's just to-do lists for later. So let's go take a look at the IndustrialCraft book and let's get started on this. So opening up the quest book, one of the first things you'll see in the IndustrialCraft section is that we need to deal with rubber. So as you saw last time, I planted some rubber trees that I gathered from across the water. And what you need to do is you use a tree tap to gather sticky resin off of it. The reason I have sticky resin, it also pops up when you chop down the trees. So let's build the tree tap real fast, which is just a small amount of wood. So one of the things I built earlier was a crafting table on a stick. It's just a crafting table you can carry around with you instead of dropping one on the ground constantly. So let's build the tree tap real fast. Let's see, something like this. Yep. Toss that on our thing, and now let's go gather some sticky resin. So you basically use it like a tool. You see these orange nodes inside a rubber tree. I chopped off all the leaves to make it easier to see these, because these will regenerate over time, and they just pop right off. That's the only one on this one. There can be more than one on these as well. I've got two on this one over here, I think. Where did they go? Yep, right there. So now we have a handful of those. To turn these into rubber, however, you take these and you go to your furnace and you just chuck it in and burn them. So let me go down there and get through that real fast. And now we have some of the rubber done. So we can just take it right out of the furnace, and that will complete the quest. So let's go in here and clear that so we can open up the next ones. So grab that, go back. From here, now that we have the rubber done, we can make the first generator. So let's go ahead and do that so that we have a power source to do everything else in this section. So to make the generator, we basically need an iron furnace, which is just a normal furnace plated in iron, a couple iron plates, and this battery, which is just cut up plate tin casings and an insulated tin wire, which you make the tin wire by, surprise, surprise, carving it in rubber. So let's start doing this real fast. One of the first things I'm actually going to do to make the batteries easier and a few other things easier long term is make something called a work table, which is kind of like a crafting table that stores recipes. Oops, let's open this up and do that. There we go. So when we'll just put this out here, it looks an awful like a normal crafting table when you look in the interior, except it has an inventory and it stores recipes. So let's go get my engineer's hammer, because we're going to need plates. We can just chuck it in here and use it indefinitely until it breaks. And then we want to do the iron furnace, which was how many? Iron furnace. Furnace. It means we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a furnace. So let's go get a furnace. Then we got the furnace, and then we need 10 iron to make the plates for this. So we'll just chuck this in here, and we'll make the plate like that, like that. You set the recipe in this grid, and then you can just complete it however many times you need. So we have our 5, and we're done with that. So now we can just go ahead and make the iron furnace. And done. So the next step would be generator. The IndustrialCraft generator is right there. So to do this, we need 3 more iron plates, that, and then the battery. So we need that plus, tin casings. We need more tin. And so let's make my 3 more iron plates real fast. 1, 2, 3. And then let's go see if I have any tin bars made. If not, I do not. So I will see you folks in a few minutes after I've done processing tin. Sorry about that. Alright, and now I've got my tin. So now we can go in here and we can make the tin plates. So we clear this out, put the hammer back in, put in 2 tin ingots, and we make 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. And now to break those apart, we just do the same thing, except we put the tin plates in. So now 1, 2. That should do that for that. Take these out of here, and let's go see what else do we need to make for the generator real fast. The generator also requires 4 plates, 2 redstone, and insulated tin wire. To make the tin cable, we just have to cut up a plate, but we need to make the cutters for, which I should have gone off of that. The cutters are pretty simple from reserves. It's just, 3 iron plates and 2 iron bars. So we can get those real fast. Put that to bring the iron plate back up. 1, 2, 3. I have some more iron bars in my inventory, and we'll just go make my cutters real fast. And yes, I'm lazy. I'm going through here to bring up the recipe real fast. So there's the cutters, and we'll put the cutters in here too. And then that, plus dump those out, and that. And now we have tin cable. Tin cable plus the rubber. Cable, let's grab those, plus the rubber equals the insulated tin wires. So now we have those. So the next step is, we've got the tin cable, we've got that, we need to go grab a stack of redstone, let's take that out of there, and now we can make the generator. So, battery, and then the generator. So that's the first primary step done for IndustrialCraft. So I'm just going to slap the generator against the wall. If you're unfamiliar with modded Minecraft and like machines and power, all you do is put like any sort of solid fuel in here, the exact same as a furnace, so wood or charcoal or coal, and it will burn it over time and generate electricity instead of, whatever you're making in the furnace. This electricity is then piped out via power lines into machines. So like that. One of the first things we can do when we go in here is build something called a batbox, which stores electricity. It's basically like a big capacitor. It's not even that big, because it's actually the smallest one. And it stores energy, and it can only output at the lowest tier, which is 32 EU. So it's not going to blow up any machines. You need to soften electricity in this particular pack with transformers, because if you send too much voltage through these wires to a machine that is not of the same tier, it will blow up. So like in here you can see how there's the bat box of tin cables, and then the LV, which is copper, and then MV, and above and above. If you pipe these into the lower tier stuff, they will just straight up explode. So that's not great. Let's grab my loot chest while I'm here staring at it. And then, so now that we have this, we should probably build the bat box. And the bat box, well, we've already got 1 cable, we just need to go make a couple more. So let's go get the rest of the rubber that I was making real fast. There we go. Let's go make some more tin cables and finish that step. So let's see, 1 and 2. And not 2, because I don't have enough plates. There we go. Let's make some plates, and then let's make some more cables. There we go. Okay, so that plus rubber equals the 10 cables. Okay, so we have that. So to make the bat box, we just need to go make the batteries. So what I should have done is make the batteries in the work table. So that's my mistake. I should have saved myself a step here earlier. So let's go into the battery. Let's go make 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 of those plates. We need to make some more. Whoops. We need to make some more tin plates. So let's go make some more of these. 1, 2, 3. That's good. And then some 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I do not have anywhere near enough. I do not have enough tin. Okay, loading again. Need to go make some more tin. This time for real, guys, I swear. It's unfortunately I keep mixing up tin for iron in this. You would think I would be able to tell blue from gray, but when it comes to these plates right here, they actually do look a lot alike. So let's go get the last 4 that I need real fast. There we go, and now I have 12. So that plus the battery is, let's see, 3 of these batteries. Toss those in there. 1, toss the wires up there. 1, 2, 3, and the redstone. 1, and the redstone, and the plates. 1, 2, 3, and now we can go make the batbox. Okay, so let's just bring out my crafting thingamabobber, the crafting table on a stick, and make the batbox. Requires the last wire. Oops. Okay, one more try. This time for real. Okay, so now I have the batbox. Let's grab the wires out of here, because I'm going to need them for this example. And let's grab some coal. Okay. So now we have the batbox. We can throw this down here. We actually need it to be facing the other way. That's not quite right. The small dot needs to be facing out where you want it to pipe the energy out to. And I want it to pipe it out to the side for when we make the macerator. So let's pop this off. So one of the reasons people don't like IndustrialCraft is if I had done that in most other versions of it using this, that would have broken the device. My IndustrialCraft machines, unless you use a wrench, tend to break. In this case, Enigmatica has those things turned off, and that's not an issue. So we put this in here, you can see that doesn't look like it's doing anything. But if we look at the batbox, you can see that the power is going up, and it'll store it up to 40,000. And then this, we put more wires out here, it will transmit it down the line to the next thing. So let's go take a look at what it takes to make the macerator. So this is the machine casing, which we have, an electronic circuit, which we do not, wood and for stone and flint. So it's pretty easy, other than the electronic circuit, which is a bunch of copper wire, an iron plate, and some redstone. Alright, so now I've got some copper wire made, so we can get this next step done. So let's clear this out, let's make some copper plates, and let's make some copper wires. So let's make some copper plate, 1, 2, let's make 4, and then let's make a bunch of copper wire, because we're going to need a bunch later anyways. So cutters, and the plate. And then 8. Okay. So we needed 6 of those, I think, to make the circuit. So let's go see if I've got enough rubber made already or not. And I do. Okay, perfect. So we'll combine those real fast. Ding, ding, ding. Alright, let's go grab some flint out of my block box real fast. There we go. And let's go make the macerator. So, oh, we need the machine casings too. Where did I put that? That should be right here. Grab one of those, and let's go put it together. Redstone and iron plate. Oh, because my redstone's still in here. And so are the iron plates that I have made. Let's grab some redstone back. Okay. So, macerator. That's the wrong one. There we go. So electronic circuit, and then make the macerator, which is 2 blocks, which we have right here. And there we go. Okay, so now we have the macerator. So why did we make the macerator, and why do we need something that eats up power? So the macerator is one of the very first things that lets you do ore doubling in this pack. There's a couple ways you go about it, but this, in my opinion, is the easiest one. Now that it has power, you can see that it's transmitting power this way, and it's coming out of the batbox. We can toss in some ore and just watch it process. Oh, you know what? I should go grab the overclockers to show you this a little bit faster. So we'll grab those. This eats up a lot more power, but for purposes of this demo, this will actually go faster. So throws it in, now you see that it does these faster. So now it's eating up all of the power that it has. But you can see that it's doubling these numbers. So this crushed iron ore, we can transmit directly into the iron ore in a smelter. There are powered smelters that we can use to do this longer term, but that at least lets us get more bang for a buck, basically. So that will make less having to get ore in the future and make this stretch a lot further than it would. So I think this is what we're going to call it for IndustrialCraft for today. So let's take a look at the chest that we got. So we got a General Tso's chicken, so more food, not the worst thing on the planet. We got an auto heavy sieve, which will be useful once we have more power. This basically lets us generate materials from effectively nothing, but it eats up a ton of power. A magical boomerang, Well, I'm not entirely sure what that does, but I'm sure we'll find a use. And a launch pad for advanced rocketry, which we're nowhere near. So I'm just going to toss that in that chest up there. Well, now that we've actually made some progress for the day for a change, let's go back to muddling with the bees, because why not? So let's go take a look at the progress that with the forestry and the Pam's HarvestCraft bees have done, just so we can see what they look like. So this is what it looks like when the Pam's HarvestCraft bee is done processing. It kicks the queen out into the inventory, and you can just recycle it back in to start it over. It kicks out a bunch of honeycombs and some wax combs and some grubs. So let's pick all of this up. And the presser right here requires no power, and you can just chuck honeycombs into it, and it will just process over time like that into honey and wax, pressed wax, which these can be made into blocks, or this is a sugar alternative and can be used in recipes as such. The wax combs just turn into wax blocks, these. The grubs are a meat substitute. They can be used in pretty much any recipe that meat is called for. Grub sandwiches. So that's how those are, but what we can't do right now is automate this. I can't just pipe into this and then back in and run it in a circle and toss it into an inventory, because one of the problems we have is that the item ducts, or the item transports from extra utils, they require an XNet item, which is not the normal thing you need to make these. Normally you can just use an ingot. This requires a lot more materials than we currently have. We'll probably get into this in one of the next couple of episodes, because I really want to get to automating things to make it easier on me. But right now this is an investment that I do not want to make. So we'll get into this in a little while. So the forestry bees, they come out like this, with a new princess, some drones, and some combs. So we just toss the princess back in and the drones back in, and then take the honeycombs out, and we can process those if we had a centrifuge and power, which again we don't have. Because this is a bee house and not an apiary, these do not ever degrade. They don't die permanently. Ignoble princesses, there's two types, ignoble and pristine. Ignoble will eventually die in an apiary and do not replace themselves. They're useful for breeding a bunch of drones for crossbreeding purposes, but they're not useful for a long-term use. So that's all we can really do with that for now. So let's go over and take a look at the rustic hive real fast, and you will see that this is pretty much done producing. This creates a bunch of honey and a bunch of bees. What we can do now is we can take out a bunch of these bees, make another apiary if we've got a really large farm, and keep basically spreading them apart. The honeycombs aren't all that useful. I just usually leave them in there because they just don't add that much. Now over on this other side of the building, I moved the Animania ones over here next to where I'm going to put the kitchen, because this one I do want to try to automate. I do not know for sure if this will actually work. Interesting that one of these is producing, the other isn't. That's probably because this spot doesn't work, but I'll move it if it doesn't. But I think because this is a liquid, I can pipe this out with liquid ducts, because other Animania structures do for sure work with them. So the liquid duct we can, however, make, because this only requires a piece of glass. And guys, I already made the copper. I'm not going to have to run into that problem this time. It's right there. We don't have that issue again. So let's make some liquid ducts real fast. Or fluid ducts. There we go. And then the other thing we're going to want to do is have somewhere to put them. And really enough, for all of the issues with this regarding transport, there's the tanks to store them in are actually pretty cheap to make. So we have two options. We have a basic fluid tank for mechanism, which holds 14,000 worth, which is just 4 iron and 4 redstone, but requires going into mechanism deeper than this to upgrade them. Or there's the thermal expansion portable tank, which requires significantly more materials, but still not that much, and is actually easier to upgrade, but holds 32 at the start. I'm just going to go with the mechanism one, just because it's A, easier to make right now, and B, I'm never going to need all that much honey. Oh, and I made a bunch, but we'll use those later. That was a mistake, though. So let's go dig out some space real fast, and we'll pipe this in a quick and dirty way into the kitchen, just to see if this works. So let's grab the food ducts and chuck those in there. Let's see if this works. So this is embarrassing to admit. I remembered to bring copper and actually do all the things for the pipes, and I forgot that thermodynamics pipes require servos to operate. So this thing right here. So So I went back and quickly made some of these real fast because it requires it to extract things out of it and to manage it via redstone and whatnot if you need that. So we'll slap those on there real fast and turn them on. And we should see honey flow. Yes, honey flow out. So that's perfect. So now we have honey going into the base. I'll clean this up all up later and make it so that I do not have to make this ugly. But this is just to bring it inside the house and make it make it usable for right now. So let's grab the pipes and bring these in. And one of the tanks. And now we have a honey tank. Now, okay, so this was a little bit more complicated than I planned. I was going to just grab it with a glass bottle, and I learned that this does not actually work with this tank. It's a little more convoluted than that. So what you need is a bucket. You chuck the bucket in there, and then you take your bucket and craft it with a glass bottle. So what this does is it basically creates a potion of regeneration. It doesn't last very long, but it's basically free and generates pretty quickly, and we have them as much as we want. And yum, 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 honey. And there we go. So that's actually kind of useful in its own way. I don't know how useful it'll be long term, but one more thing to add to the kitchen, so that's not the worst. Alright folks, so I think I'm going to call it here for the day. We made some actual progress for a change, and we got to play with the bees a little bit. So as always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.